Mrs. Graskin. I'm going to be teaching statistics this year at the high school. I took over, Mrs. Schaefer retired, if some of you remember Mrs. Schaefer. Okay, so she retired and she taught statistics for all those years and she had a master's in it. So I'm taking it over. So this is my first year teaching statistics ever. Haven't had statistics since I was in college, so it was a little bit of time ago. So I am by no means, an expert, but I'm going to become an expert at it. And how I'm going to help you, the level 3s, is I'm just going to be a resource for you once you know what kind of statistical test that you're going to be using for your data. And you might not even know, and we might be doing that together to help each other with that. So where I'm going to start is what I put in the summer 2018. I just put in a list of statistical analysis I put in there, and what I did was I asked Ms. Shea, what kind of statistical tests do you use in the Science Research Institute? So she just listed 16 different things. Sorry, I had to wave a little people. And I just went through and I started researching them. You guys know, you can find everything on YouTube, right? Everything is on YouTube. So, but did you ever go to look it up and then you can't, it's above what you really needed? Or you can't understand what the person's saying, it's hard to understand. So I was trying to go through and pick out things, and then I thought, well, I don't really know what you're going to be using. So what I did was I just made a little worksheet up in Word. It's nothing exciting, but it just goes through all the different statistical tests that Ms. Shea had told me about that you guys use. And like I said, you might use more of that. Let's see, I'm going to make that bigger. Okay. So logistic regression is at the top, and guess who's going to be using that? Rachel. I got looking into that for you.
Okay.
Because of the data that, and this, you don't have to copy any of this because this is on Schoology, but you have some data that you're looking at that's all binary with the zeros and the ones, and you want to use a logistic regression, I think, for it. But something that you're going to want to use is this XL stat. That's in Excel, and most of the things that you're going to be using are in Excel. Our Excel package has a lot of statistical pieces to it, but it doesn't have that. So I had to add that in, okay? Well, I can't add that in on my school computer because I'm not retarded. So I added it in on my home computer, which was not very good. So I'm going to try to talk to Joe Chimenko about getting it on my school computer, and then if it's something that will work for your data, because you have so much data. Oh my goodness. Hers, oh my gosh, on the cardiomyopathy. Hers is either 0, they answered a question, 0 for yes and 1 for no.
Yeah.
And then she needs to run that into something to see if it correlates between if they said yes and if they have the cardiomyopathy or not. There's just so much information. So I've been looking at that to help you to do that. And that's something, and I only know that specifically because Ms. Shea shared that with me. So if I know that's something you're going to be looking for, I can also look that up for you and help you as much as possible. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is contact the computer department, the tech department, and say, can I get this on my computer? Okay, that's the first thing. The chi-square, did any of you use that yet? Like I went and looked up that, well, how you use that with statistics. And what it's for and why you use it. And I was literally teaching myself lessons on it. I wrote by hand, and then I'll show you some of the things I did on Excel. I was making up my own notes, you know what I mean? Just like you guys would. I was going through, I was writing them down, doing things in Excel. I was also trying to do them on the graphing calculator too, but I made up just everything off of the YouTube videos. The graphing calculator does a lot of statistical stuff, but Ms. Shea was telling me, you're going to want to be able to put this in a report, and the graphing calculator isn't as good for that. But if you have statistics class with me, or in college, and I'm going to have Megan talk about that in a minute, yes, the graphic calculator could be used, you know, for task taking and that kind of thing. But when you want to put it into your report to present, it's, you know, it's not as good to use. So I went through that, and I was looking, you know, all the information. There's just a lot of terminology with statistics, and you know, what your hypothesis is. That's the other thing. What do you want to prove? Because then you have to almost disprove it to see if it's significant or not. Because did you ever see a survey that said, oh, after looking at this data, and they say something about it? Well, sometimes the data isn't even significant enough, you know, for you to make that statement. But as a consumer, you wouldn't even know that. So all this information I just got off the internet. In fact, the YouTube videos, it was a person teaching, kind of like Khan Academy, but it was a person teaching with Promethean or slides or something, and it was going through, and it was writing all this information down, and I was just copying it, you know, writing it down as well, and taking notes on it. There's a lot about critical values and what you think is significant and what would be significant, so that's important, I guess, in science for you to know what's significant. Is it a significant, like what you're doing, Bren, like, what you're finding, is it enough of a significance that you could make a statement about it? And I think you're finding out some cool stuff too. Like there's 16 different things here, so like I said, you can really look through. There's formulas I wrote in here. This ANOVA, analysis of variance, I think you used that a lot. Did anybody use that yet? Did you use that, Janae? Yeah, so ANOVA. I'm like, okay, what does that stand for? I'm looking that up myself. So I went in, now did you use a program or did you use Excel or what did you do?
Yeah, it was like Secret sent me like this file and you could just like plug things in.
Right, well, because there's all these different formulas. Let's see here. And I wrote this all down in there, what the different things mean. So let me just show you something I did, okay, with ANOVA. I actually created this in Excel and typed all the data in for the groups, group 1, 2, and 3, took the average, took the sum, took the mean, did it all, did the total of the sum of the squares. Like, I mean, yeah, you can get Excel to do all that for you. Now, like, if that's something that you're going to use, I already have this set up, so maybe you just use this and put your data in. You know, instead of group 1, you put whatever you need and we can adjust it. But see, now I know Janae's going to use that test. I can do the research for you. You do the science part. I don't think I can do that, okay? You're going to do the science part, but if you're going to use this, let me save you some time and I'll look it up and I'll get it set up for you, and then I can send it on to you and say, here you go, now you can use it. And then she can quickly go through and say, all right, I'm just going to, you know, put my data in. And then you don't have to figure out, like for me, if you look over here, you know, I wrote all the formulas in for the mean. I figured all that out. Well, I was watching all the YouTube videos, but I did all of that. There was something I learned though about, where was the one? When you're using Excel, did anyone ever do something where they had to use a dollar sign? I never use it, and when I first started teaching, we did our grades on Excel, and we created our grade book on Excel, and I never used a dollar sign. What it basically is telling you to do is, I took the mean, which I got 4, okay? I wanted to subtract 4 from every single number in the group, so 2 minus 4, 3 minus 4. Well, instead of me having to retype that, I can just tell it to do, it's actually the cell B9, which you can't see on the side because it's off to the side, but if I wanted to be subtracted every single cell, the 2, 3, 7, 2, and 6, if I want that to get subtracted by 4 each time, instead of just saying B9, I put that dollar sign in front of it and it kept it the same every single time. Instead, if you don't do that and you drag the formula down, it subtracts the wrong numbers for you. And I'm like, oh, it kind of keeps it constant. And I never knew it did something like that. So it's things like that. And if you have never worked with Excel, I mean, there's ways of not having to type the formula in. Like if you look here, and then I'll click right here. I didn't type that formula in. I just used that little black cross, and I drag everything down. It's real great. It's like a copy and pasting, but you don't even have to go that far. You can just drag things. And what Miss Shade said she'd like you guys to do is to know how to like save yourself some time. to save your time, because you've got a lot to do. Can be time saving if you know all the little tricks. And if I don't know them, then I'll look them up for you, okay? So I went and I did a experiment with the stress levels of employees, if they were gonna be told they were gonna be laid off, and I went through and found out all that information. I looked up how to do the chi-square test and put the information in. Again, it's just formulas, but a lot of it, you just put this into the computer, you just type in, if you look, chi test, any test that you want, usually in Excel, it's in there for you already. What else did I do? I looked up, the man, what am I looking up here? Man Whitney. That's something you guys have ever done before? Anyone level 3? So there was another test that you did. What was I looking at? I was looking at the coping skills after a certain kind of treatment as usual, and or having some other treatment, the CBT, and then just using that test. And see that formula? Everything up there? Got that off of a YouTube video. And how do I use it? And what does it mean? And is it significant or not? That's the thing. It's like, is it significant and not enough for you to say, I'm going to present this because this is actually really meaning something here? Maybe it's not significant at all. And what was the last one? Oh, that was another one. The student's t-test. And a lot of it has to do with the mean and then just finding the actual significance of the test and if it's a good test or not to use. So that's it. You're going to have to figure out what's going to work for you both. If you're going to have to figure out first what you want to research, but then what significance test. Now, what was the one? Let me think about this. Let me think. It was something with the standard error. Do you guys work on that? Standard, let's see. Let me change the view on that. How about, standard deviation? Do you guys find that? Do you understand what that means? Maybe some people don't at all. I might have to go through and explain some of that to you, what that actually means. But the standard error, how about that? And I say error weird because I'm from New Jersey. Yeah. And that's the way not. So for the standard error too, that's something where you take that to look at, if you have a huge population, like tens of thousands of pieces of information, and maybe you only take a sample of it, a small sample, and is that sample significant to represent the entire population? So you would have to know all the different terminologies of that. And then also just finding, let me just change that view. Oh, too far. Looking at just the means and then the error bars to see if their means are very close, but their standard deviations are further apart, and then you see like the difference in them if the means are very close and what that looks like. I know you use that maybe in your research or have used it. And what did I do here? Final exam scores. This was kind of explaining this is an easy way to explain standard deviation. Does anyone not know what that means? Let me start with the average. You know what an average is, right? Does anybody not know what standard deviation is? Good, then you all know. That's good, because that's something that you're going to need to know how far you deviate from the mean. So you have to find your mean and then go from there. And I did something with exam scores because that's just easy to see, to find out what the final exam scores were, the mean, find its standard deviation plus or minus 5.25 above or below the mean. So 68% of the scores would be in that range. But that's good to see for you guys. You know what that means. Now, if you're a level 2 or 6th, 7th, and 8th grader, you know, you probably don't know maybe what any of that is. You know what I mean? So you're going to need to know that. I don't think I'm going to get into, like, if you were in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, do you think standard deviation might be a little bit above your head in that level? I was thinking, you be my critics. If I'm going to teach level 1, let's say, okay, and you're in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, I was just gonna have them find sum of a column, mean of a column, and then have them find the standard deviation and maybe just talk about it, but not really like get into it. Do you think that's okay for 6th, 7th, and 8th? I think we could do that. Just plug the numbers in and be able to use the Excel, and then just how to make a bar graph out of it. Oh, this is something I started going over. I'm not going to get this involved, but just how to make a bar graph with some information. Then I was changing things into percent and things like that. So that's what I'm going to show 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then the level 2s. What I'm going to, is there some level 2s in here too, as well? Yeah. What I was just going to do with you guys anyway, when I do that intro, is we're actually going to type some things in, do the formulas, make the things, like do them by hand, and then I was going to introduce you to some of the more advanced stuff, just so you can see it and know what you're probably going to have to do when you eventually get your research project going. Okay? But I don't know where people are with their level of understanding what Excel is, too. I mean, what classes do you learn that in besides the science class? Business? Microapps, if you took it, right? And if they didn't take it, then maybe you don't even know how to use Excel at all. You don't understand what that means. And not to be confused with iExcel. It's not that thing. It's not that thing. It's not that, especially for the middle schoolers, because I know they're going to be like, ooh, we're doing iExcel? No, we're doing Excel. So I will help you out as much as you know, like I said, I'm not an expert, but anything, if John, you come to me and you say, I want to use the XYZ, or I don't know, make it up, significance test. I'll go, okay, let me look up the XYZ significance test. Let's see what we can find. So that I can focus on that, John can focus on the science part of it, and then we can come together and I can help him with it, okay? And even if I'm not here, you know, like Mr. Seifert was saying, just to let us know, like, oh, Miss Prescott, you help me with this, that, or the other thing, and I'll be happy to, research whatever I can. So you may know more about it than I would. But the other person I want to introduce, well, you guys know Megan. Come on up, Megan Bright, former Conrad Weiser graduate.
2014.
Yeah, 2014. Now, Megan was talking about the different kinds of statistical programs that you use at the college level. And this might be good to hear what she has to say. Now, we might not be able to use it here, but maybe we will. I'm going to talk to the tech guys as well, see what we can do. But some of you juniors and seniors, you're going to be thinking about this when you become science majors. So Megan may have a different insight into what you're going to be seeing when you get into the college level.
Yeah, so Excel, I've used that a bunch, and it's certainly sufficient for running statistics, especially when you're doing things like averages or standard deviation like she talked about. But when you get into more advanced statistics, like the t-test and the ANOVA, Mann-Whitney, it's easier if you have some kind of software that makes it more of a streamlined process, because you can see it's kind of complicated.
Yeah, I had to make those up.
When you have to code things and put them into the bar up at the top, it can get really confusing. So when you might not use this in college, but it's a very common package to use in college is the SPSS, which stands for Statistical Package for the Social Sciences.
Let me see if I can find it.
And so it's something that you have to download on your computer, and I'm not sure how the rights work with it, if you have to pay for it. But I felt like it would be really interesting and beneficial if you guys could learn how to use that now, because it can be really overwhelming if you're thrown into a class, a statistics class in college and you've never seen it before. But once you know how to use it, it's perfect for statistics, because that's what it's meant for, right? You can do a bunch of stuff on Excel, so statistics stuff can get kind of wonky on Excel, but if you're using SPSS or something like it, it's just made for statistics, and so it's user-friendly in that way. SPSS. Yeah, and so
see, Excel's great, but you have to write the formulas up. You have to tell
you don't have to do any of that here, and it's really easy. You'll put in data, or you download a data sheet, and you pretty much go through a few things, and it says what kind of test do you want to run, what's your sample size, do you want a graph to go along with this, do you want error bars on your graph? It's really easy. Are you going to sign up for it?
I will look into that, but there you go, I mean, it's a free statistical.
Yeah, so I don't know, yeah, there's different updates of it too. Every year you have to do a new one, but that's what I used in college, and so I thought maybe if you guys got some experience with that, that would be, it's easier for statistics. And it's actually, it gives you more information than Excel would, so it gives you some degrees of freedom, your p-value, your different standard deviation, k-value. It's
What
a bunch of
about the
stuff that you guys
charts?
probably
Are
aren't
the,
familiar
you know all
with.
the charts you have to look off of?
Yeah, actually they're also easier to view on that because it makes you a graph and it automatically puts all of your information into one graph instead of having to make a bunch of different graphs on Excel. It's easier because it's made for statistics. And it is kind of difficult to learn, but that's why I thought maybe if we could like start easy with like a t-test or something. If you guys go into science in college, that's probably what you're going to use, not Excel.
Who's going into science in college? None of you here, right?
Yeah, but it's what I used in all of my science courses, all of my independent research, so it's definitely something worthwhile learning now, or getting acquainted with at least, and learning how to go through a few things on there. So we're going to see if we can maybe download that, at least on one computer, to show you guys what that looks like. I'm not sure if you have to pay for it.
Well, no, this is a 14-day free trial, but you
So,
know how that
yeah.
is, we might have
You
to.
might have to pay for it afterwards. They might give like student discounts or something, I don't know. But yeah, it's just to let you know that Excel is very worthwhile and totally good to use that this summer, but just so that you're prepared, you probably will be using something completely different in college if you go into the sciences. So.
It's almost kind of like Mr. Shearfrost did for you. He sent you a file, all you had to do then was put your information in it, right? So you didn't have to create the formulas and everything yourself, so.
Also, one of the hardest parts of statistics is just learning which kind of test that you need to do. So like, if you look at your data, and then you're like, okay, well, how do I know which test to run? There's like 16 different tests, right? So I actually, in my one statistics course, had to make a graph, or what's that called, like a tree.
A
tree.
graphic
Yeah.
organizer.
So like it asks a question, you know, do you have binary data? No, yes. And then it'll pretty much tell you which test to use. So I'm gonna see if I
Do you
can
have
find
that? That'd be a good thing.
because that was something I really struggled with because I didn't take a statistics course here, and so when I got to college I didn't have any idea how to do statistics. But if you get past the like, okay, which test do I use, it actually becomes a lot easier from there, especially when you're using software like SPSS.
Because I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking, how do you choose which one to use? They're all significance tests.
And there's little differences that split them up. So like, I'm trying to think of an example. There's certain tests where it's kind of hard to determine if you should use this one or that one, and there's one little difference between the data sets that might determine which one you use. And there's many different versions of like t-tests, okay, and it gets really confusing. So if you have like a chart or something that you can memorize or just look at, that makes it a lot easier.
Wow, that'd be a great resource, and that's something we could put on here. Well, like Rachel's data is binary, 0 or 1.
Some of it is, that's where
So,
it's.
yeah.
Right, but the other stuff there
Some of
wasn't.
it is like, it's large range, so that's.
Like
why-
ranges would probably be Man-Whitney if you're ranking things.
Okay.
Maybe, I have to see it.
I mean, you must
Yeah,
have,
I
what,
can show it to you.
9,000 people did this?
It's 800 per tab and there's like 4 or 5 tabs.
It's a lot of data.
And that's not all of it yet, still.
It's still coming in, yeah.
Yeah, and it's different, it'll be different for everybody.
Now,
And
what if-
some people will have easy tests, like the t-test is probably the easiest one, and that's gonna be a lot different than if you have to run like a chi-square or an ANOVA. ANOVAs can be kind of complex.
Yeah, that one took me by hand, it took me forever.
Yes,
It
never
was
do that by
so
hand, ever.
long, and the sum of the squares, and this,
Yeah.
and the numerator, and the degrees of freedom, I'm like, oh my goodness, and I'm a math teacher, and it took me a long time.
Yeah.
Bryn, do you have a certain test you're using yet?
I usually use ANOVAs.
You use ANOVA. How did you get a file from CWSRI, or same thing? So that's it, we want to be able to, give that to you so that you don't have to create it on your own. Anybody else use any other ones that maybe we didn't talk about? I know some of you haven't even started your project yet. So for people who are level 2s that haven't even picked a project yet, let's pick our project first and see where we want to go, and then, we'll work from there and try to figure out, what we need. Now, does every single project need a significance test? Kinda, right? Because aren't you kind of trying to prove something? It's like a proof in math. or disprove. Don't say that. No, he's saying don't say no more, no proofs. Okay. But hypothesis and conclusion, you did that in geometry. If this, then that. That's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's not just about learning how to do the test either, it's how to report it within your report. But so there's a specific way for each different kind of test that you cite it when you write about it in your report. So, I don't know, flies that were given sugar water instead of regular water grew to be this many fractions of a gram more, whatever. Okay, that needs to be backed up by a test, right? And then behind that sentence in your report, we can get into this more later, this is like pretty specific, but you report that a very specific way in parentheses, and you have to report not only the p-value, which is your significance, but degrees of freedom and which test you did, and it's kind of all, it just makes it look more professional, and it's the way that when you actually would publish a paper professionally, that's what you would have to do. So it's important to learn that kind of thing now. But that all goes along with statistics, just not running the test, but learning how to report it and make it look professional too.
And especially for like the level 2s that haven't even started to, p-values that might not mean anything to you, what we're saying. And that's okay, because you'll learn, and we're all learning. I mean, everybody had to start at some spot. And some of the kids that have already been doing it, the girls have been talking to, and that they've, maybe you want to ask them, could I see yours and see what is it that I have to use, just maybe you're not going to use the same thing as Bryn, but just to get an idea about where you need to even start, okay? Because that's like we were saying, just to get to know more people and kind of network to see where you need to be, okay? So use us as a resource. Now she's much more closer to it than I am, Megan is, because she's done the science part of it as well as the math. I ain't the science part of it, so don't even ask me that. But she would even be a better resource just because she's come right out of the labs,
Yeah, if you guys have any questions about that, I took biostatistics in college like sophomore year, but I remember most of it. So.
But did you
use it a lot?
Yeah.
A lot, yeah. It's a really valuable resource. Even if you're not going into science, if you're going into something like where you're doing any kind of research, like, I don't know, if you do like economics research or, computer science or anything where you present research and say that something is significant, you need significance tests to back that up. You can't just make a statement. So it's in almost everything. It's very interdisciplinary and it's really important to learn. So,
do you guys have any questions for us? So just use us as a resource, okay? And we're going to be here to help you out. And maybe like Ms. Shade said, it's going to be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Yes, ma'am.
So like for this SPSS thing, can you like link it to your Excel sheet, or is there like an Excel sheet in there that you can type in your
yes, so it looks very similar to Excel. It has the grid.
Okay.
Let's see if I can get it.
And, or you can even just look up like screenshots of SPSS on Google, like images or something, just to show them what like it would look like. It's very similar. It's just easier for statistics. So like, you can't really do a lot of things on it that you would do like in Excel.
Megan, there's a million of them.
Yeah, so that's exactly what it looks like. Okay. And you insert your data differently than you would in Excel.
Wait a minute. This is for Haska.
But yes, so you can link, so let's say you have an Excel spreadsheet of data, okay? Like you have a lot of data.
Yeah.
She does.
So you're not gonna type it back into another program, that's out of the question, obviously. So what you would do is you probably have the Excel data saved somewhere, right? So you can link that, you can open it in SPSS from your computer, if you download it on your computer.
Okay.
So then it opens it up and it's all in SPSS for you already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. I was trying to make it bigger, but I don't know what happened.
And then it makes graphs, it makes beautiful graphs. And the graphs are, I don't want to say more accurate than Excel, but they are more, they're more comprehensive because in Excel, I had a huge problem, I know in a few classes, where when you click in Excel, add error bars to your graph, it doesn't, or standard deviation, I forget which one it is, it doesn't actually do it accurately.
You know what?
It doesn't do it accurately.
I watched a YouTube video on this.
So
And it said if you just add error bars and do
It's
it,
wrong.
it's not as
It's
accurate.
wrong.
You actually have to go into a custom
yes.
and change some
Which
things
is really
around
hard to
to make it more accurate, and that's exactly what I found on YouTube. So,
Yeah. So just knowing
I'm
that,
telling you.
this does, SPSS does all the math for you so that you don't even have to go through all of that. When you click add error bars, it's doing like a bunch of calculations and it adds in the correct error bars, whereas in Excel, it doesn't do that and you have to go through 1,000 more steps and it's just dumb and very,
So I'll try to get in and then we'll see what,
Yeah.
tomorrow that'll be my thing. Well, actually, yeah, when I get in the morning, I'll contact Joe and say, this is what we need. We need to be able to get in, you need to be able to get in, Ms. Shade. Because that's the thing, when you go to download it, it says you don't have authority, so, yeah, right? All right, well, we'll be talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.